Good evening, everyone. How the devil are you? Excuse me, I have some business to attend to. Oh, I could have... Let me just try and get this glare off the top of my head. That's better. I could have so easily got stuck into that an hour ago, but I decided, no, I'll wait for the chaps. Yes, indeed. It's been a bit of a mad day. Loads of stuff to get done, and rushing around like a madman. And finally, about an hour ago, I finally got caught up on everything, and I was so ready for a beer then. But I thought, no, I'll be good. How is everyone? Who we got in? Let's have a look up in the chat. S. Wainscott, Brad Matthews, Ozzy's in. How are you, Ozzy? David Evans, Johnny Random, Bottleneck Bob, how are you, mate? Jimmy James, Chip Young, Deco Dude, Ian Geddes, Ian Clark. Hi, Ian, how are you, mate? Johnny Love saying hello from Southport. Well, hello from a rather mild and pleasant red car, it has to be said. I was on the beach with a dog this afternoon. John Channing, the Essex Cat, Jason Carter, Malcolm Spillett, all of the usual suspects, basically. How's everyone doing? Hope you had a fantastic week. Yes, do you like the T-shirt, by the way? A very, very kind chap. Student of mine, Kieran, he'll probably be dropping in at some point, has, I think it's either a friend of a family or family friend or whatever, who is none other than Don Airy. And I got a surprise package in the post today, a signed poster from Donna. Steve, let me see if I can find it. Yes, there we go. A Steve Morse guitar pick. And this T-shirt, which I'm very, very chuffed about. I'm just... next time I'm up at the shops, I'm going to get a post. I'm going to get a frame for the poster and get it all framed up, and you'll probably see it on the wall behind me in videos and so on. Yes. A few people are mentioning the time change across the pond there. Yes, it's caused a little bit of consternation this week with me lessons. Because we haven't changed our clocks yet. We change them next Sunday, basically. So we'll still be out of sync for next Friday's live stream. But after that, we're on the same page again in terms of the time difference. It is really rather a pointless thing to do, isn't it? This thing twice a year where we mess around with the clocks. Can anybody explain why we still do it? In the UK, we kind of knocked it on the head during the Second World War. We didn't bother. We spent 6 years without doing it, and you know what? The sky didn't fall in, and then it just suddenly we started doing it again. And I, for the life of me, can't think of any reason why. It's because it makes the roads safe. Well, all you're doing is borrowing an hour of daylight and shifting it from one end of the day to the other. Makes no sense at all. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Good evening, Nigel. How are you, mate? I'm always 1 hour ahead anyway. Y2K strikes at last. Yes. God, you remember the panic about that? Dear me, it only seems like yesterday as well, doesn't it? The Y2K bug. Planes were going to fall from the sky. And it was going to be an unmitigated disaster until it wasn't. Yeah, I've heard that as well, Bob. It's done for farmers to give them extra daylight. Who knows? I don't know. But as I say, there have been times in our history when we haven't done it, and it didn't seem to kind of cause massive disasters. Anyway, excuse me, I'm talking a lot, and I need to lubricate the old vocal cords. Anyway, let me tell you, as is customary round about this time of the evening, what we're getting up to this week on the channel. Tomorrow, there is, you remember that minor blues chord sequence from Wednesday? Well, we're having a look at some of the options. Let me just bring the mic a bit closer. We're having a look at some of the options that you've got for soloing over that over that chord sequence. And even though I say so myself, I'm quite proud of the solo that I did with that. It was literally just, damn, I've got 10 minutes before my next lesson's due, and I've got to get something recorded. So it was one take, and it just, you know those one take solos that you do every now and again, where you listen back to it and think, yeah, that's, I wouldn't want to change anything about that. Well, that's one of those. Then on Monday, we are looking at my favourite Thin Lizzy guitar solo. I'll give you a bit of a clue. It's from, it's from a track that is track 1, side 1 of, I think, the best Thin Lizzy album of all time. A few candidates for that, but that's Monday's video. Tuesday, remember last week I did the 5 favourite Strat tones. Well, this week we're looking at my 5 favourite Les Paul tones. Good evening, Randy. Good evening, Lee. How are you, lads? The chord progression from Wednesday was super, says Thomas. Well, thank you very much. I can't claim any credit for that, though, because it predates me. It's largely based on something like The Thrill Is Gone or something. Then, no, not Jailbreak, Ozzy, not Jailbreak. That's a good album, but it's not the best Thin Lizzy album of all time. So keep guessing. Or I don't think it's the best Thin Lizzy album of all time. Good though it is. Then Tuesday, yes, my favourite Les Paul tones. Wednesday, we are looking at chord sequences again. And essentially, not so much a chord sequence, but a way of putting a chord sequence together. Something that, bands as diverse as the Foo Fighters and ABBA have in common. Then on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about an album. This is another one of these Why I Love This Album videos, where basically, have you ever been really, really into an album and then just somehow it slips through the cracks? It happened to a lot of people, I suspect, when we made the change from cassettes and vinyl to CDs, or from CDs to MP3s. There's an album that I absolutely adored back in the 80s, and then it just suddenly kind of drifted off when I couldn't find it on CD when I first went to CDs. And I've recently rediscovered it. So we're going to be talking about that album on Thursday, and then Friday we're back on the beer again. No, you've got the right album, Derek, but it's not Waiting for an Alibi. It's the right album, Black Rose, side 1, track 1. So what track is that? Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. No, not Whiskey in the Jar, I'm afraid. No, not Rosalie. I'll put you out your misery. It's the solo from Do Anything You Want to Do, which it's more an exercise in looking at harmony guitar parts as much as anything else. But it's a fantastic solo. Gary Moore, of course, Scott Gorham, just doing the tightest guitar harmonies you'll ever hear. Absolutely fantastic solo, I think. And that's why we're looking at it. And it's been a while since I've done anything harmony guitar related or kind of Thin Lizzy related. Yes, Vagabonds of the Western World was a great album. And what was the other early one? Tales from a Blue Orphanage. I used to have both of those, but not anymore. Again, albums that slip through the cracks when you change from one format to another. John, talking about Lizzy, on Phil's solo album is a track called Gino, and it's a bit about Gino Vanell. Okay, I didn't know that. What was it? because I remember I had the Solo in Soho album. When it came out, because that was the one with like Yellow Pearl and King's Call on it, wasn't it? Evening, Gary. How are you, mate? I'm confused by Gibson's focus on creating relic Murphy Lab guitars to sell at 10k. I don't understand creating reissues of 15. I understand creating reissues of 59 Les Pauls, but having them fake worn in. Thoughts? Well, my thoughts on relic road worn, guitars are well documented. I don't get it. I don't want to criticize anybody's, taste, because it is a taste thing. It's when you criticize somebody's tastes in guitars, it's like telling them that their wife's ugly, and I don't want to be doing that, But it's just I don't get it. It doesn't float my boat, and it's not something I would be prepared to spend, a premium for. Let me say, it's. I don't mind a beat up looking guitar. It's just I don't like it. It just feels a bit contrived, having it come from the factory looking like it's been buried in a peat bog for 40 years. Evening, Derek. How are you, mate? Why buy a brand new broken guitar? Yeah, I mean, it's my missus watches this show on some reality channel or other where they do the same sort of thing with cars, and it's the car looks like it's got sort of rusty wings and kind of rat rods, they call them. And I always used to say, well, imagine phoning up the BMW dealership and saying, can I have a car with bald tyres and rusty wings? But apparently some people do that, Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you. Yes, if you missed that at the top of the video, that's one of my students who I think, I don't want to be presumptuous enough to say this, but I think he's become a bit of a mate over the years. Has a bit of a family connection with Don Airy, and I received like a nice little package of Deep Purple memorabilia, signed stuff and what have you this week, and I'm very touched by it, actually. Relicking is great if it is what you like. I don't mind the odd battle scar on my guitars, but if I can, I polish them off. Yeah, well, it's. Do you remember that that Harley Benton guitar I had? I know that doesn't narrow it down very much, does it? But the Cabronita Telecaster one, the TE90 FLT. That was a beautiful guitar. I am thinking about getting another one of those, actually. I had to sell that and the semi-acoustic that I had because we got a rather scary vet's bill in from when the dog had pancreatitis. But the neck on that was like, it was almost like it was completely unfinished. I don't know if that was just a one-off or anything. It felt absolutely gorgeous, like really kind of custom shop feeling neck, And the only downside with it was that, it just picked up any amount of muck and dirt and everything, but it got this wonderful, what antique dealers would call a patina on it. We used to listen to Gino Vanell, and Phil called my mate Gino taking the mick, John. Okay, fair enough, mate. No, yeah, I think the school of thought in the chat there seems to be that many people just don't seem to get the whole relicking thing. It's just the guitar industry and the guitar kind of marketplace is just as subject to the vagaries of fashion as any other marketplace, really. I've been kind of interested in guitars from when I started playing, really, 1978, and from not much longer after that, I started reading guitar magazines, and these days it's the internet, obviously, but you do get to sort of see these trends coming up. I mean, for instance, once upon a time, you remember when every single metal part on the guitar had to be made from brass, or it wasn't a great guitar? You had to have a brass nut. You had to have a brass bridge. You had to have brass bridge saddles. Even down to the jack socket had to be brass. Even was it the Yamaha SG2000 that used to have a big brass block set into the body where the bridge would sit into, and then suddenly, at some point in the 1980s, nobody cared about brass anymore. And then it had to have a Floyd Rose on it, or a Carla or Kale or Carla, however it's pronounced. And that was the big trend. You had to have the locking tremolo. And, you start to recognize these kind of things. Like at the moment, stainless steel frets and roasted maple is the big trend. That's the hot ticket. You start putting those on a guitar, and immediately it's suddenly a current guitar. And I don't want to discount any of these things, but I've been around long enough to know what I like and what I know works for me. So I tend to not really regard such matters like that. And relicking is another thing like that, but it's a fad that doesn't seem to be in any way kind of going away. It is something of a thing for me with high-end expensive guitars, because recently, and I don't want to sound like I'm being smug here or anything, but recently, since my fortunes have changed pretty dramatically, it has to be said, in the past 5 years. 5 years ago, frankly, not to put too fine a point on it, I didn't have a pot to piss in. But these days, it's I'm not doing too badly, just, comfortable, let's say. And, obviously I've got the signature guitar now, but, when I look at high-end expensive guitars, that I think, yeah, I could afford that, but I don't want it. And the reason I don't want it is always because it's relict, and I don't like that look. Or it's the exact opposite of a relict guitar, where it looks really, really kind of blingy and ostentatious, and, just kind of, it's the sort of thing where if I was going to play that guitar, I would need to buy myself some leather trousers and a big gold medallion and have my shirt open to the waist. And that isn't really me either. You know what I mean? This made me chuckle. There's an interview on YouTube with Lemmy from Motorhead saying that all the best band names are one word. Then he went on to say his favourite band name ever was The Who. Yes. Yeah, apparently The Who chose that name. Roger Daltrey's talked about this. They chose the name The Who because when the band name was on a poster, they wanted a short name, because it was when they were kind of lower down the bill, because they were the high numbers to begin with, weren't they? And then they changed to The Who. When they were lower down the bill, sort of further down the poster, it made whoever was printing the posters put their name in a bigger type, because it needed to fill up the width of the poster, and made the name more noticeable. So there you go. Gold medallions are coming back in, are they really? Yes. Maybe I should grow a mullet as well. That'd take a while. John, if you'd never picked up a guitar, what would you have ended up doing? I can answer that quite accurately, because the two things I was really into as a kid were tinkering with electronics and music. And that's why I ended up going to college to basically do an electronics course. It was marine telecoms. It was essentially was. I was going to go to sea and be a radio officer. And let's not put too fine a point on it. The reason why I didn't fully pass that course, I mean, I passed all the electronic stuff. It was just the the safety of life at sea and Morse code kind of stuff that I was rubbish at because I didn't apply myself to it because I was too busy playing the guitar, essentially. I found the electronics part of it like really, really easy. So I sort of passed that without having to work too hard at it. But the Morse code stuff and like this book of regulations about the safety of life at sea that you had to memorize verbatim, that was my downfall. So I didn't kind of get the radio officer's certification. But if I hadn't been playing the guitar, no doubt I would have passed that course and I would have been, you know, kind of working for Cunard or yes, there's a joke there, but I won't bother. I would have been working for like Cunard or, you know, some big shipping line and, you know, kind of tapping out Morse code, or these days, I don't even know if they still do Morse code on ships, but that's what I would probably have ended up doing. Playing Chris Isaak went to guitar with Trem, and it's doing my head in. Really, yeah. That whatever happened to Chris Isaak? Actually, because he was massive, wasn't he? You know, I mean, Wicked Game and Blue Hotel, and you know, huge global hits. And then I seem to remember he had like a bit part cameo in Silence of the Lambs as an actor. Did he go off and become like a proper thespian or something? You're welcome, Jason. Hi, John. We seem to talk about guitarists. Let me just move the mouse pointer out of the way. Yesteryear. How about your thoughts on guitarists of today? Joseph Philonan comes to mind, or Pilona. I can't. Sorry, my eyesight isn't good enough at this distance. Guitarists of the current crop. Well, I mean, this is well documented. Josh Smith is my favourite kind of current guitarist. You know, all of this sort of new, these kind of new innovators on guitar. I mean, God bless them. You got to love them. You know, people like Pliny and Tosin Abbass, they're keeping the instrument current and everything. And, you know, it's great that the guitar is kind of continuing to have new life breathed into it by guys like that. But honestly, for me, I'm a dinosaur, really, and it just doesn't float my boat. The kind of Joanne Shaw Taylor, she's current. Yes, Bob. Guthrie Govan. How could I have forgotten about Guthrie? Yes. Thing about Guthrie though is he's not exactly prolific in his output, is he? I mean, I love that album, Erotic Cakes. I've got to be in the right mood to listen to it, it has to be said, because it does get a little bit, if you're not in the right mood to listen to that kind of twiddly shred stuff, it is like angry badgers fighting inside your head. But when I'm in the mood to listen to it, dear me, it's a tour de force. But who else? A guy, and I'm ashamed to say I can't even remember his name, but a band that I thought were going to be absolutely huge when I heard them about 15 years ago. So I'm 54 years old, so excuse me, but that is current to me. Do you know what I mean? A band I thought were going to be huge were a band called The Feeling. I first heard one of their songs on the radio. It was called Never Be Lonely, and it was like this kind of, I thought, is this Steely Dan? Is this Supertramp? It's got that sort of, it's a weird kind of, I thought it was like some kind of Steely Dan, Supertramp kind of mashup supergroup kind of thing, because it's got that feel to it. And what a solo there is on that track. There's going to be a solo analysis of that song at some point. And, you know, because, you know, as is the way of things, because I thought this band are going to be huge, then suddenly they were nowhere. So, have you heard Paul Rose play before? No, I haven't, Pablo. I can't say I have. But, you know, what I tend to do, actually, with these live stream videos is I used to write stuff down, but kind of Sunday or Monday the following week after this, I'll probably kind of go through the chat and chat replay and kind of start making notes then for people to listen to. Would you consider Derek Trucks to be current? Well, he's producing output at the moment, isn't he? So yeah, I'd call him current. So John, can you listen to music without analysing it? Yes. But it's a tricky one. When my missus is watching the World Light Welterweight Power Ballad Championships, or The Voice, as you probably know it called, I'm just listening to it and I think, okay, that's a 1-6-2-5 sequence, or okay, going to the 4 chord, then a flat seventh, okay, modal interchange going on there. I just hear that sort of stuff without really trying to hear it. When a piece of music just kind of grabs me, though, and it doesn't have to be a complex piece of music either. It can be something as simple as C, F, and G. But when a piece of music just grabs me and kind of hits me here, then all thought of that sort of stuff goes out the window. And for me, that is the music that, I think, okay, I want to listen to more of that. When I can't see the scaffolding holding it up, that's when it really makes an impression on me. Do you count Midge Ure as being a giant in the pantheon of Thin Lizzy guitarists? Well, he had big shoes to fill, didn't he? Because, he, when Thin Lizzy parted company fairly acrimoniously, if you've ever heard the interview, it's on YouTube, when Gary talks about, leaving Thin Lizzy in the middle of that US tour. Midge had big shoes to fill. You're kind of replacing Gary Moore in the middle of a tour. That is, and I mean, you got to have respect for anybody that does that, really. Yeah, Paul Rose is a Northeast lad. Getting back to Paul Rose again, I shall have to check him out again. I will go through the chat replay on Sunday afternoon when I'm kind of kind of trying to wind down after the weekend and take notes on this. But not a name I recognise, actually. Yeah, as you say, Ozzy, hats off to Midge Ure, hard act to follow. I remember seeing him actually on, do you remember in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, for those of us who are old enough to remember that, there was these Prince's Trust concerts that used to be on the TV, where Prince Charles, charity gig, Elton had turned up and, Eric and, and Rod Stewart. It was the usual crew, basically. And I remember seeing Midge Ure on one of those, and he played this, I can't even remember what song it was, but he played an absolute belter of a solo. I seem to remember he had this big, old, fat Gibson archtop guitar with a Floyd Rose in it. Just, again, it was the 80s, the Floyd Rose, you had to have a Floyd Rose even in your kind of Gibson ES, whatever it was. John, I'm friends with John Miles Jr. Have you and his dad ever crossed paths? No, actually, Jason. John Miles is I think those of us who are old enough to remember will recall that big hit that he had, Music, which I featured on my last podcast, actually, which reminds me I need to start putting bits and pieces together for next month's podcast. But he was Tina Turner's guitar player for a long time as well, wasn't he? But fantastic player. Can't say I've ever crossed paths with him, but it's it would be nice if it could happen. George Thorogood and the Destroyers been listening again. That's another band. I mean, we talk about when we discover bands. George Thorogood and the Destroyers, I discovered via Live Aid because I'd never heard of them before, and it was on the American segment of Live Aid. Excuse me, more beer. It was on the American segment of Live Aid that, they came out and did this blistering set. And another guy who I discovered via that same gig was they brought out Albert Collins. This wiry-looking dude with the Telecaster slung over the wrong shoulder, because he used to play just with the guitar kind of on this shoulder rather than this one, which I thought that looked a bit odd. And couldn't figure out how he was playing the licks that he was playing, because obviously his guitar was tuned to the key of Albert Collins, wasn't it? But John Miles is very popular in Germany to this day. I didn't know that, Jason. And Bob's saying check out Toby Lee if you haven't already. Yes, I saw that that episode. Who's that who said that? Excuse me, I'm knocking beer cans over. Let me just scroll back up the chat. Brad saying check out Rick Beato's What Makes This Song Great, episode 100. Peter Frampton's Do You Feel Like We Do? Yes. Spoiler alert, that song actually does occur on my 5 favourite Les Paul tones video, which is coming out on Tuesday. I mean, that is just that Frampton Comes Alive album is just, you put it on and it's like I don't even know if there is a video of that gig or those gigs, because it was a couple of nights apparently. I've never seen a video, but I feel like I've watched that gig a million times in my head. Do you know what I mean? It's just that the whole thing is so evocative. John, I have a sister who is a very gifted pianist, and she also has perfect pitch. But she told me that it was a hindrance rather than an asset. Any thoughts on perfect pitch versus relative pitch? I don't know. I mean, I can't really speak about the pros and cons of perfect pitch because I don't have perfect pitch. I've met plenty of people who claim that they've got perfect pitch, but there's always a good reason why they can't demonstrate it just now, But I don't know. I suppose if you are so attuned to kind of what an F sharp note should be, and you hear a piece of music that isn't perfectly in tune and the F sharp is slightly flat or whatever, then I can tell how that would be a bit of an annoyance. That said, it has to be said that the tuning system that the world essentially uses now is not or hasn't been universal throughout history, because without getting too sort of technical about it, the basis of modern harmony or all harmony really dates back to Pythagoras, when he discovered essentially the intervals of an octave and a fifth. The problem is that if you extrapolate Pythagoras's calculations, you run into something called the Pythagorean comma, which essentially means that an A note in the key of A isn't going to be the same note as an A note in the key of G or the key of G. The frequencies aren't going to be exactly the same. And that was resolved essentially by Johann Bach with his system of equal temperament in 1740, when pitches were adjusted. So the whole kind of thing of perfect pitch is, a little bit based upon it's subjective, put it that way, because pitches haven't always been the same throughout history. An F sharp note wasn't always for instance, an F sharp note and a G flat note these days are the same note, but they weren't always. But relative pitch for me is the big deal. That's the one that What's that, Johnny? I didn't realise until recently that most people with perfect pitch lose it or it goes away in the 50s, according to Rick Beato. Well, fair enough. I didn't know that either. But, I can usually hear, an interval and think, okay, that's a fifth, or that's a third, or that's a kind of flattened sixth or something like that. I can hear that just because it's not cleverness or talent. It's just kind of years and years of listening to music and, and kind of analysing it. It's... so that for me is the useful skill, relative pitch. Any views on the importance of when to or not to play, i.e. phrasing? Here's a great tip when it comes to phrasing. Start playing a lick and start breathing out at the same time. And when you've run out of breath, stop playing. That makes your licks sound more vocal because you're essentially mimicking what a horn player would do. It's so many kind of licks. I mean, I mentioned in my blues players video a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week or week before? I do these videos so often in advance that I can't remember when I actually did them. But yeah, Yngwie playing the blues, it's a comedy skit, really. Because it's just whittle, kind of on and on and on and on. Each phrase just never seems to have an end. And, that's basically the downfall of a lot of guitar players, especially if you've got like kind of virtuoso technique. You need to have the virtuoso phrasing to go with it. Just so when you can't breathe out anymore, stop playing, leave a gap, pause for breath. It makes the music sound more vocal or more kind of, musical, basically. Initially, I trained my ear by using those god-awful pitch pipes in the 80s. Yes, now they were a con, weren't they? They were a scam. Yes, you get a little harmonica with the sick of the guitar on it, and if you were lucky, one of them might be in tune. I remember my sixth, on the set of pitch pipes I had, the sixth string was the one that was actually in tune, so you could tune your guitar to the sixth string, and then tune the guitar using the relative method for that. But if you tuned each string to the note on the pitch pipe, it was madly out of tune. Where are we? Not going to happen with Yngwie. More is more and more and more. Yes. I mean, people have a lot big downer on Yngwie. Possibly me included, but you can't deny the guy's technique and his talent. It's just he's one of those guitar players that needs to be in a band where he isn't the leader of the band, because ultimately it just when he's in control, it just becomes just the entire album is one long shred solo. And you tend to lose any sense of melody or anything like that. It's one of the reasons that, out of all of those 80s shred guys, for me, Satriani was the one that really stuck out because, he was never on a mission to keep the melody a secret from his listeners. There was always a tune. As me granny used to say, I like that because it's got a tune to it. I still listen to Surfing with the Alien today. And it's a great melodic album. I did have this mad project in mind years ago where I was going to basically re-record that album myself, but do them as kind of like shadowsy kind of instrumentals. And I still reckon it would work. I did do actually sort of a country swing version of Surfing with the Alien that I might put up on Patreon just as a little bonus, Brucey bonus for people. and it actually turned out reasonably well. Satch can write a song as it has a structure. Yes, indeed, David. Yeah, that's the thing that, yeah, his tunes. You listen to a Satriani track and it's got a verse and a chorus, and yeah, there's a twiddly guitar solo where he kind of blows for a bit in the middle, and shreds a bit, but then you get back into the melody, and that's what a lot of the 80s shred guys just seemed to lack. It was just, okay, we'll play 8 bars of a head and then just shred for the next 10 minutes. What makes you want to buy a guitar? Mine's the neck. If it's not right, it's a no-no. What's yours? Yeah, the neck is a big thing for me. That said, I'm not that picky about necks. It's like the Gordon Smith that I used to have was a really Bob will attest to this because he's got the guitar now. It was quite a slim 60s Gibson kind of neck. The signature guitar, this one, is more of a handful. You know, it's not an uncomfortably large neck, but it was quite an adjustment going from the Gordon Smith to that neck. But once I've spent 10 minutes playing a guitar, I tend to acclimatize. It's more about what I don't like than what I do, to be honest. You know, I don't have an exacting list of things. Oh, it must be this neck profile, and it must be this, and it must be that. The two things I can't get away with are like really kind of thin necks, like 80s Ibanez Wizard style necks. And the other thing that I really, really just, it feels uncomfortable for me, are the vintage Fender 7.25 radius fretboards. You know, just not for me, really. What do you think of Mr. Big and Paul Gilbert, John? Well, the only Mr. Big song I've ever really kind of owned is To Be With You. I bought that as a single, actually, because I thought it was a great song. Paul Gilbert, I can't say I'm a massive aficionado of his output. Wasn't he? I remember, again, an 80s guitar magazine, Guitar Player, the one that used to come with the free flexi disc, and there was this thing that he'd done on there. You know, was it Racer X he was in? You know, in the 80s. And that was just kind of twiddle, 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 you know, kind of loads of shreddy sort of stuff. And that didn't really enamor me to his style of playing. I have to say that his YouTube output is incredible. He just comes across as a really nice guy and does some really good tuition stuff on YouTube. So for that alone, yeah, I'd call myself a fan. Oh, you find the neck on the Gordon Smith really good size. It just works. Yeah. Well, I'm pleased you think so, Bob. I'm pleased you're happy with the guitar. You like Paul Gilbert, do you, Ozzy? I should really go out and check out some more of his more current stuff, but it's like, you know, when your first taste of something isn't really to your liking and you give it a bit of a wide berth after that. So, you know, again, I should get over myself a bit, really, shouldn't I? Mr. Big did a nice version of Humble Pie's 30 Days in the Hole. Okay, I haven't heard that. Again, you know, big fan of Humble Pie, so I shall go and check that out. John, have you tried the vintage lemon drop guitar, the Peter Green Gary Moore icon? Yes, I have. Back in the days before we were all under house arrest and students used to come to my house for lessons, 2 or 3 of me students brought those guitars with them, and I've been that close to buying one. It's a beautiful guitar. They make 2 versions. One is the kind of relic one, which I don't like relic guitars. I may have mentioned that, but it's not even a particularly good relic job on that guitar. It looks a bit sort of contrived to my eyes. But it does have a lovely kind of satin matte finish, which I do, on balance, prefer. You know, when it comes to satin versus gloss, you know, it's a bit like Coke and Pepsi. I may express a preference, but I'm not gonna die on a hill for it. But the non-relic version is like a really kind of heavy gloss finish that it's too far the other way. But you know, if you can put up with a relicing, or if you're not like put off by too heavy a gloss finish, then it's a fantastic guitar. Certainly, I would say better than that Epiphone that I reviewed recently. And if you put a gun to me head and said you have to buy a Les Paul style guitar, then that would probably be one of them rather than that Epiphone. Nice guitar, but it was just, I could tell I was never ever going to bond with it. Do you use your out of phase a lot on your signature guitar, John? Oh yes, all the time. All the time. You know, I haven't used it in a video recently, but just when I'm on, you know, kind of limbering up, usually I teach from about 9 a.m. on a morning, and I'm sat at my desk up here from about 7:30, and I do a bit of limbering up, you know, put a jam track on and have a jam, just to get ready for the day's work. And yeah, I'm always using it then because it's just such a fantastic sound, you know. Recommendation for guitar solo lesson, John. Another Nail in My Heart by Squeeze. Glenn Tilbrook is an amazing player and it's pretty tricky. Played at the right tempo. Fantastic, perfect solo. What a brilliant suggestion. Give that man a pint from me. Yes, Glenn Tilbrook. I've never ever thought of doing a Squeeze guitar solo, and that is a fantastic solo. You're right, mate. Do you play keyboards? I play keyboards in the same way that somebody who's read a book on how to ride a bike can ride a bike. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I've got a keyboard, you can't see it's out the shot over here, that I keep meaning to get set up. I know exactly how to play a keyboard, but it's just, you know, translating that into a practical ability. It's something I should, you know, really do at some point. I had the vintage AFD / nice guitar, amazing pickups. Okay, Nigel. Yeah, a friend of mine had one of those, and he was absolutely blown away by it. He brought it around for me to have a look at a couple of times, and it was a gorgeous looking thing, it has to be said. What happens in out of phase? Essentially, when you put pickups in phase, it's a bit simplified here. What happens is that you get the electrical output of both pickups adds together. When you put them out of phase, they cancel each other out. So if you had two pickups that were completely the same out of phase, you would get silence. But because, you know, your neck pickup is at a different point on the string to the bridge pickup, there is a slight difference in output from the pickups and the tone of the pickups and so on. So when you put the pickups out of phase, all you get is the difference between the two pickups. So it's a thinner, hollowed out sound, which is just a beautiful, haunting sound. Take a listen to any old Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green stuff. Need Your Love So Bad, obviously, but any of the slow blues stuff from that period of Fleetwood Mac, and you'll hear Peter Green's out of phase Les Paul. It's a beautiful sound. John, when learning guitar, what did you struggle most with, and how did you overcome it? I'll be honest with you, the thing I struggled most with on my Woolworths Top 20 guitar was the thing that used to absolutely chew through strings. It was, you know, I've often described this. The Woolworths Top 20 was essentially a collection of sharp edges held together by a guitar-shaped lump of plywood. And it used to chew through strings. So what you used to do was, you know, if you needed to play the guitar and you only had 5 strings on it, you would have to find where the notes were that were missing on other strings. And that's sort of what taught me the fretboard. I don't ever remember anything being a struggle in terms of, like, you know, it caused me frustration. I remember things being difficult, the obvious things like bar chords and, you know, playing just that little bit faster than you could play at any given moment. But that was just something that I would, when I was practicing, I would just kind of zone out and you know, I would think I'd been doing it for 10 minutes and I'd lost 2 hours, you know. So in terms of like actual things being a struggle and a source of frustration, I don't really remember anything being like that. It was just, yeah, let's just kind of go and crack this puzzle, essentially. Chris Buck has a nice little video showing the normal versus out of phase sounds. Okay, yeah, that's probably a good one. I like his videos, Chris. He's a video showing the normal versus out of phase sounds. Okay, yeah, that's probably a good one. I like his videos, Chris. He's a good lad, is Chris. Toya's tank starter buttons are getting more prominent every Sunday. Oh, the old chapel hat pegs are das. Okay, yes. I've noticed that she looks younger now than she did when she was a big star in the 80s, doesn't she? Vanson pickups, which one would you recommend? Depends what you want for me. If you're wanting humbuckers, then the classic 57 PAF is a fantastic pickup, really. You know, it's just a great vintage sounding humbucker. Check out Miley Cyrus's version of Heart of Glass. Great cover, proper set of pipes on her. Yeah, okay. You see, I'm only vaguely aware of who Miley Cyrus is, because that bloody song that her dad did, "Achy Breaky Heart," it haunted me in the 90s. As I was in 3 separate bands. I was in like a sort of a top 40 covers band, and we did Achy Breaky Heart. Then I left the top 40 covers band, and I went into a country band, and we did Achy Breaky Heart. And then I left the country band and went to like a sort of a pop metal band that was doing, you know, kind of Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams. And somehow or other, Achy Breaky Heart made it into the set list of that band as well. It's like, I can't escape this song. Help. How do I get your address? I have to get Dave. Oh, sorry, you're talking to somebody else there, mate. Never mind. Yeah, Toya's had major services and a refit, I reckon. Yes. I reckon that there has been some surgical intervention there. Achy Breaky Heart, earworm from hell. Yes. Another one, actually, that did the same thing. Excuse me, I just need my last pint. Anyone remember the Mavericks? Dance the Night Away. That was another song that was like, I understand why a load of bands did it, because it was like, it was 2 chords. So you could knock it together in the practice room in, 5 minutes flat. And, it was always a crowd pleaser. But that was another song that kind of, I was in 2 or 3 different bands, and they were all playing it. But the thing is, we were doing it in one band. It was in the original key of E. In another band, we had a girl singer, so we had to do it in G. And then another band, it was in, I think we used to do it in D. So it was like, I'd turn up for the gig and it's like, okay, so what key is this song in tonight? Billy Ray had a top-notch mullet. Yes, he did indeed, didn't he? Actually, that album, Trampoline, that Mavericks album, Achy Breaky Heart, Dance the Night Away came from. It was a pretty good album. That was like the one kind of, if you were listening to the album and you didn't know that song was a hit, that's the one that you'd hit the skip button on the CD player, because it was obviously just a bit of a throwaway bit of daft. But that one was the hit. The rest of the album isn't bad, actually. There's some good stuff on there. If you're into that sort of, slightly kind of country pop sort of thing. Yes, all right, Chip. Do you want to flake in that? Okay, fair enough. I shall keep practicing. I've got a few more pause to do tonight. Do you use the tone knob on your guitar? Are you a fan? Yes, indeed, I am. For me, that's another one of the things that speaks to me in a guitar. Is, if I pick up a new guitar and I'm playing with it and I turn the tone knob down and it all just turns to mud, then that is, something, well, I'm a bit suspect about this guitar. Maybe I can replace the pickups, maybe I can replace the pots or whatever. But even with the tone control on 0, I think you should still be able to get a usable sound. That guitar, this one, hey, again, sorry to keep doing a plug for this one, my signature guitar, but, with a tone control wide open, it's a very bright sounding guitar, which means that, when you're on single coil mode, it's a very Fendery sounding guitar, but flip the coils back into humbucker mode and turn the tone control down to about halfway. You're playing a Les Paul, turn it, all the way down, and, suddenly you've got this warm kind of chocolatey jazz tone. So yeah, the tone control should have a range of usable values across the whole spread of the knob rotation, and if it doesn't, then that is again, Bob, the Gordon Smith is great for that. Have you ever heard Larry Mitchell, John? Very Satriani-ish. No, I haven't, Colin. But again, when I'm going through the live chat replay, then that is another name I shall be making a note of and kind of checking out. Mullet, the old Camaro helmet. Yes, indeed. Yeah, my missus used to have a Camaro when she was in her youth. John, how about a video on intonation? It won't be very musical, but will help a lot. Well, I did a video on basic guitar setup stuff, but will help a lot. Well, I did a video on basic guitar setup stuff ages ago, so I might revisit that. An intonation was part of that. All you got to remember, here's the acronym that you got to remember for doing your intonation. First of all, don't do your intonation with old strings. Fit a new set of strings and get them stretched in and tuned up before you do the intonation. That makes a difference. And then all you got to remember is fret flat forward. You know how you measure your intonation? You do the harmonic at the 12th fret and then the fretted note. If the fretted note is flat, you move the bridge saddle forward. That's all you got to remember. And just invest in a decent tuner, basically. Because you want to be able to tell whether the reading you get is accurate or not. I'm having a bit of a thing with this with a student of mine at the moment. He keeps saying, but when I play the open string, it says in tune, but when I play the harmonic is out of tune. Trust your harmonic. Your harmonic is a more accurate gauge of whether the string is in tune or not. Anyway, it's good practice when you're tuning up to use your harmonic anyway for tuning. And then, just as I say, fret flat forward. If the fretted note is flat, move the bridge saddle forward. If it's sharp, move the bridge saddle back. That's all you got to remember. Gonna attempt to scallop the frets on one of my guitars. That could be interesting, says Craig. Yes, it could indeed. I once had a Jackson guitar where the last 4 frets were scalloped. It was a 24 fret neck, and the last 4 frets were scalloped. And can't say I can't say up at that end of the neck I noticed a huge difference. But you know, I mean, Richie Blackmore swears by scallop necks, so does Yngwie. It's I don't know. It's not something I have an informed opinion on. John, what's your opinion of Venom? Not my cup of tea, mate. All that sort of shouty metal stuff. It's anything heavier than Iron Maiden, and I start to kind of it's disappearing off the edge of my radar. I got to tell you, I'm not a metalhead, so again, I can't say I have an informed opinion on that. John, altered tunings. Altered tunings, yeah, they're fun to play around with, but the problem with altered tunings is none of the bloody notes are where you left them, are they? So you go to, for kind of playing sort of chordy sort of stuff. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting chord. You're just trying out random chord shapes and stuff. But then you go to play a lead break, and suddenly it's like you sound like Les Dawson on a bad night. Hello, sir. Nice T-shirt. Do you like Tommy Bolin? Again, my only real experience of Tommy Bolin is I heard a little bit of the stuff he did in the James Gang after Joe Walsh, and what was the from sort of his period with Deep Purple. Anyway, I can't say I'm a massive aficionado of his stuff, but I do know he has a bit of a reputation. So, again, another name I shall have to check out. I've liked what I've heard, but I haven't heard a hell of a lot, is what I'm saying. Ever get into Budgie, from Cardiff? I remember seeing them on the old Grey Whistle Test. Great sort of, kind of rocking power trio, weren't they? They were one of those bands that you when you listen to them, you think, it never struck you that there was a big hole in the sound when the guitar went into a solo, but it never sounded empty in the way that some trios tend to do. Never sounded empty in the way that some trios tend to do. Wolf Mother. They were a great power trio. Are they still going? Do Strats sound better in E flat? This is the age-old debate, isn't it? I honestly don't know. I've always been a pretty standard, stick-in-the-mud, standard tuning kind of bloke myself. I think there is some truth in the fact that, especially on any electric guitar, the more metal you have flapping in the breeze in terms of string gauge, the heavier the string gauge, the better the tone you're going to get, and it's just, there's more kind of metal kind of moving in the magnetic field, and that produces a bigger tone. And I think the whole thing with the E flat tuning is just the it just takes the string tension down a little bit. So I don't know. It's not something I can't honestly say that. People talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan's sound. I'm sure if you give Stevie Ray Vaughan if he was alive today, if you gave him this Glary Telecaster that I've got over here with 8-gauge strings on it, he would still sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan and get Stevie Ray Vaughan's tone. But you were brilliant. No, they're still going. Burke Shelley, singer bass, he isn't bothered, but he nearly died when touring in Europe a few years back, and now he's in his 70s. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, chaps, I have a kebab arriving very shortly, and I'm almost out of me drink, so I'm going to have to go downstairs and get some more. So thank you so much once again for turning up for this little soiree that we have every Friday evening. It never ceases to be a source of amazement to me that so many people turn up to watch a fat, bald lad drink beer and talk cobblers for an hour. But you seem to like it, so I'm going to keep on doing it. But for now, I'm going to wish you all a happy weekend, and I'm going to go and have me kebab for me tea, and I'll see you all in the next video. So for now, time, gentlemen, please.